Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining our webinar. I'm Ashley Limbers, the marketing lead here at Encompass Solutions, and I'm happy to be your moderator for this session. For those of you who are new to Encompass Solutions, let me give you a quick introduction. We are a North Carolina-based ERP consulting and implementation firm with over 24 years in business and a global team of just over 40 staff members. We focus exclusively on serving the manufacturing and distribution industries, delivering solutions that help organizations streamline their operations, help overcome challenges, and drive growth. And in today's session, we're going to focus on EDI myth busting, separating fact from fiction in supply chain automation, presented by our very knowledgeable speaker, Tanya Sweet. Before we dive in, just a few housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded, and we are going to send a copy to all registrants afterwards. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please be sure to type those into the Q&A box on your Zoom control panel, and we'll answer as many as we can during our live Q&A at the end. And lastly, we'd appreciate it if you could take a minute to fill out the quick survey after today's session. It helps us keep improving these events for you. So now let's turn things over to our presenter. Please join me in welcoming Tanya Sweet. Tanya is a true titan in the world of EDI with an impressive 31 years of experience under her belt. Tanya's journey in this field began in 2007 when she made a transition from healthcare to manufacturing, pioneering the implementation of EDI with Epicor for the very first time. And since then, she's been instrumental in countless projects spanning various industries, showcasing her versatility and depth of knowledge. In 2018, Tanya played a pivotal role in the launch of Encompass's Entrust EDI product. And we're excited to have her here with us today. So without further ado, let's get started. Tanya, over to you.
Thanks. Hi. If you've been on an EDI webinar before, you've been with me. If you haven't, welcome. It's nice to see you. I cringe when Ashley says I've done anything for 31 years, because surely I'm not old enough to have done anything for 31 years, but I've been doing EDI most of my adult life. And so I've built up a bit of expertise in the area, and I want to share some myth busting with you today. We're going to start out. Oh, I'm supposed to share my screen. Hold, please. Let me do that. I want to share this one. We're going to start out with a poll. And again, if you've been with me before, I always start out with a poll, but this time we're not going to find out the results till the end. So that's just a little new and fun. I am also going to go off of camera so that you can focus on the actual presentation. Well, maybe I am. Here's my button. Okay, here we are. Ashley, can you bring up a poll question?
Yes. So our poll question: what is one thing you've heard about EDI that you're not sure is true? So there are 5 options. So first is EDI is only for large companies or larger companies. Portals are better. EDI is difficult. EDI is outdated. And EDI replaces humans. So if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and take this survey for us so we can share the results at the end of today's event. We'll wait a few more seconds. Give everyone the opportunity. All right, we'll go ahead and end this poll. And oh, looks like there's some more coming in. We'll wait a couple more seconds. All right, Tanya, we'll go ahead and end the poll.
All right, sounds good. We'll get back to the results towards the end. I wanted to talk about all of the items before we find out what people thought. So we have a quick agenda here. We're going to talk about why the myths exist. Then we're going to talk about the top 5 myths that keep coming up. For years and years, they've been coming up. Then we'll cover our poll results, talk about some EDI use cases and bust those myths. And then how Entrust and Encompass can help in a little QA at the end. So jumping right in, we have all these myths out in the world about EDI, and why on earth don't they go away? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but here's where they came from. Way back in time, EDI started in the 60s, if you can believe it. Shortly after computers even were invented. EDI came along and people could see the potential that it would have. But of course, it got harder and difficult, and it was clunky. It was IT, the tech gap and reality were not the same. It's come a long ways, of course, since then. Then there were the people who were actually doing the implementations. And because they were so painful and clunky and became expensive, their impressions stuck with them very deeply. It's not fun, it's hard, it doesn't make sense, nobody follows any rules. All of those misconceptions for today were true back then. So you've got that one person in your company who tried to do EDI in the 80s and will never touch EDI again because it was horrible. So it makes sense. Even in the early 2000s, that was still true. It was still pretty clunky. Excuse me. And because it's clunky, it's become expensive. And then it's very invisible. And if you can't see all the working parts of it, it's hard to troubleshoot. People did not like that at all, of course, and understandably. And that perception has just stuck. We're slowly whittling away at it, but it's still people hear EDI and they want to cry. So EDI started taking shape in this 1960s, very first with the automation of the purchase order and invoices. Way back in the 60s, it's crazy. And then as time went on, the transportation and shipping companies were like, hey, we could make things faster if we automated some transactions. In the 1970s, someone said, we should really have some standards. So those showed up on the scene and have progressed since then. But the original ones were pretty hard and clunky and expensive. In the 1980s, the big guns started to say, well, you're going to have to do EDI, so you're going to have to figure it out. Sears, Kmart, later Walmart, started to offer EDI, and then they started to mandate EDI. The automotive companies jumped on board in the late 80s, early 90s, and were almost all exclusively using it by the 2000s. It's not what it was in the 70s. It's not what it was in the 80s. It's not even what it was in the 2000s. It's not even what it was in the 2010s. It is constantly evolving and changing. It's not going away. It's not becoming old technology. It is still the backbone of global supply chains. And some statistics are 98% of Fortune 500 companies rely on EDI daily. That's almost all of them. Billions, not millions, billions of transactions move via EDI every year. And as you may know from your experiences, many of the retailers and in automotive and healthcare, they mandate it. You can't trade with Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's. You can't do business with them unless you can electronically talk to them. Now, that doesn't mean you couldn't use a portal. It doesn't mean you couldn't use a fulfillment platform like SPS offers. It doesn't mean you couldn't be using one of those, but if you do business with many of those large retailers, you're doing EDI on some level. New standards started to come out. We had some really generic ones from the 70s, but then the automotive business said, hey, we need something more specific to us, and they created their own standards. Not unusual. The paper industry said, yeah, none of this will work for us. So they created their own standards. And they're continuing to update them. Not all customers move to the newest versions when they come out. Some people stay with the old ones because they work, which makes perfect sense for them. And so sometimes you'll see some pretty old standards out there. Regulatory and compliance companies, ISO, those kind of things are putting pressure on you to do EDI because they can regulate that and they can control it. So that comes out in the world. And then there's the new APIs that everyone is worried APIs are going to replace EDI. And that's going to cost a lot, right? We're still in that myth of it costs a lot, although we get to that later. It's not. APIs are not, they may someday, but it's not coming anytime soon. They are enhancing EDI rather than actually replacing it. APIs tend to be more for single transactions at a time, where EDI can handle the larger volumes. The great thing about APIs is instant gratification. You know immediately when something has shipped, or you know immediately when something has invoiced, but they're not going to be replacing EDI. They're going to be enhancing EDI. And so, whoops, I went too far. So sorry. The hybrid of EDI and API is really the future. EDI is going to handle the volumes and the day-to-day transactions, and API is going to handle the real-time single transactions. But neither are going to be going away anytime soon. And in fact, they will just continue to grow. They're not going to go away. So myth number 2, EDI is only for large companies. Historically, that was true. In the 70s and the 80s, the only ones who could afford to do EDI were the Fortune 500 companies. The investing just in the infrastructure to do it was not something that any small mom and pop shop could do. It just was, that's what it was. And then they were and probably still are paying by transaction. And as they're getting bigger and bigger, their volumes are getting bigger and it gets more expensive. That's how it works. So they were just the only ones who could afford it, is the bottom line of why that myth came to be. Pretty much everybody in retail has to be able to do EDI on some level or another. It's not just Fortune 500 companies, it's small, mid to mid-sized businesses. It's the bigger businesses. It's even the mom and pops down the street who are having to do EDI. Managed services and full service providers came on the scenes, and then we've been able to bridge the gap, especially the costly gap in the middle, just to make things more affordable for the small to mid-sized businesses. Subscription-based models have also come along, which makes it even more affordable. We're not paying huge amounts up front, but we're being able to spread it over time. And then outsourcing to third parties has made it easier for an average size company who just can't afford or find the staff to do EDI. You can just outsource it to someone else. So the truth is EDI is more affordable, scalable, and easier to integrate than ever, making it much more realistic for small to mid-sized businesses. It's not just for the big guys anymore. And then myth number 3, this one is a big one and is full of fear. EDI replaces humans. EDI is never going to replace humans. The early EDI messaging back in the 70s and the 80s was that automation meant that when you went home at night, right, everything could still run. That's the lights out processing, which makes it sound like jobs are going to disappear. Okay, that seems like it could be true. EDI was also seen as a cost savings initiative. So if you hear cost savings, people think, payroll's got to go down for me to have cost savings. And then automation always stirs fear around losing employees. That's just true in any industry across the globe, really. But people are always going to be needed for EDI to succeed. You have to have the humans involved in the processing for exceptions. The computers are not always going to be able to figure out what an exception is, or how to solve it. And so people will need to be there for the exceptions. They also need to be there for the testing and the onboarding, because computers just aren't going to be able to look at an order and say, hey, that looks wrong, right? Where a human can say that looks wrong, and now let me figure out why, and then backwards solve it. The other thing that computers are never going to be able to do is build the relationships with your customers and suppliers. That is all human, right? It's not, if we rely on computers for that, we're not going to have any relationships with customers and suppliers. So you're always going to have your salespeople or your customer service people who are working with the actual customers and suppliers and building those relationships. Oh, I already talked about the exceptions. Users are the ones who can handle the exceptions. And then it's also going to take people to provide strategic insights. Computers can give you the reports and tell you what's happening, but humans are still the ones who are putting all of the pieces together. EDI is the conveyor belt that is moving the boxes efficiently, but the humans are still needed to direct the traffic and fix the jams. That was my fun little visual there. EDI can get things moving quickly and efficiently, but something still happens and humans are still going to have to be involved. So EDI makes bad jobs obsolete, and your people can do better ones. So you don't have the people sitting and typing data into your computers. EDI can do that for you. And your people can do the relationship pieces and whatever else you need them to do. Myth number 4. This is maybe my favorite. It's not my favorite myth. It's my favorite. Let's bust this myth. Once EDI is live, it runs perfectly forever. People want to think that EDI is set it and forget it, and it is absolutely not. There is always something moving and needing to be checked with EDI. Internal IT companies or internal IT resources were like, okay, the EDI project is budgeted. We're going to do this thing. And then once it's done, we're done. But you're going to have ongoing costs for support and maintenance and upgrades and adding trading partners and all of the pieces that continue to change. Trading partners are constantly changing their standards. So we used to send it this way. Now we have to send it this way. I just learned today another one of the big players is jumping ERPs themselves. And so they want to initiate retesting with all of their providers. So we have to go back and retest things that were working and running perfectly are now going to have to be retested. If you upgrade your ERP, you're probably going to have to upgrade something with EDI along the way. You're going to need to, at the very least, test, but probably it's going to require some upgrading. If you make big jumps in your ERP upgrades from old versions to newer versions, of course, it's going to be a whole new project. So people assume that EDI is like accounting software or payroll. You install, you configure it, and it runs forever. That's absolutely not true. Things change way too often for that to work. And then the other thing is if you do your EDI project, you've got a smooth go live, everything goes well, people are like, great, now we could just turn it all on and sit back and enjoy the ride. But that's not reality. Reality is that it's got to be maintained. It's got to be watched. It's got to be troubleshot. I don't know the word, but it's going to require humans. Again, back to our other myth. I just said all of this. I'm sorry for the repeated slide. The partners are updating their specs or the compliance rules, and new customers are choosing to use EDI-enabled suppliers. So quickly, right, we're going to have to add new trading partners constantly. Once we're up, it's funny, once people know you can do EDI, they're like, oh, great, let's do EDI with you, since we know you can do it. And once you start to see the benefit on your side as well, you might go out to your customers and say, hey, are you EDI enabled? And can we do business via EDI? Both sides. So the truth is that EDI is not static. It's constantly changing, requiring companies to invest in EDI. It's going to be a line item on your P&L for the rest of time. You've got to have something in the budget for it. All right, and the last myth is portals are just as good as EDI. Lots of suppliers are offering these web portals, which is great. And it's so good for the beginning of an EDI project. You start to understand what they want. You start to understand what they need. Excuse me. You start to see your transactions in reporting style. You can tell how many purchase orders you got last month. You can see them all. You can tell which part numbers are the highest volume. Those are all great. But web portals still require people to hand enter data into your ERP. It's not streamlined. It's not automatically happening. It is often free, which is great. Again, for the beginning, when you're just coming into EDI, you don't know what it means. You could just use a portal to watch things. That is really helpful. And it is great that it's free. It doesn't usually require any setup on your side. And it's usually pretty user-friendly because the people who are using it are the people who are not proficient in EDI yet and are just newbies. And so they're learning as they go. But portals create manual bottlenecks. What if the one person who knows how to log into the portal stays home sick today? Now you've missed all of your orders. What if your trading partner decided to do a blanket upgrade of some kind and they send you 500 POs in a day? Now I'm stuck waiting for people to enter 500 POs into your ERP. That is no fun and a big bottleneck. There's no alerts either. So you're constantly needing to look at that portal and go, oh, hey, there's a new purchase order. I better get that off. There's very rarely any alert that says you've got a new order, go get it. We still have the data entry errors that we're trying to combat constantly. If we're hand entering it into our ERP, then we are hand entering it into our ERP. And our users are limited by knowledge. So the same scenario, right? You've got two people on your team who know how to get into the portal. And if they're not there, then nobody knows how to get into the portal. there's little to no visibility across the company. So any of your managers or higher than that people who need to see things can't see it without finding someone who can get into that portal. So portals are great for the low volume first timers, but it is not sustainable for long term. Integrating EDI eliminates all the double data entry, and you're going to get the accuracy that comes with that and the visibility that comes with that. So that is our 5 myths. Now I'm interested to see which ones you guys thought was the biggest myth or the one that you thought, period. Ashley, if you can jump in with our poll results.
Yes. Excuse me. So it looks like we have a tie across the board. So the 3 ties were EDI is difficult, EDI is outdated, and EDI replaces humans.
Oh, interesting. All 3 of those. Thank you for sharing that, Ashley. I'm interested that not one of them stood out. That is cool. They're all out there, and I'm not making it up that everyone thinks that. All right. So I just wanted to talk about some specific cases that we've seen across the industry in the years that we've been doing this and how these myths were not true for them. So we had a 20-employee machine shop, right? Not big, just practically a mom and pop, but a little bigger than that. And they landed an automotive contract with one of the big automotive guys because they said, oh, yeah, sure, we can do EDI, no problem. And that, of course, got their business to explode. And they're much more than a 20-employee machine shop now. But just being able to tell the automotive people that they were EDI compliant is literally what got them the contract. So that is a huge piece. It doesn't mean the big guys have to be the ones who do it. Anyone can do it. Then we had a small mom and pop that was a very specialized niche manufacturing company, and they needed to do EDI for one of their training partners, and they just did not have the staff. They didn't want to learn EDI. They didn't want to do anything, and they actually just engaged with us, and we do it all of their EDI for them. They don't touch it. We just handle it for them. If we have any business questions, we have the users that we go to. But that's absolutely easy for them. They're pretty small, and it's something that we could just help them out with. Then we had a larger company that was relying solely on portals, and there was one user, and she was the only one who could understand the portal. She was the only one who could log into it. She was the one who was translating all the data into their ERP, and she was the one who was sending all of the data back to John Deere via the portal. And it became her job. She was unable to do almost anything else. And so we were able to integrate. They were big enough that they could integrate, and they were able to do that really quickly. And she got to go back to doing her customer service job, which is what she really enjoyed. She didn't really enjoy spending all of her days in portals. And so she was very happy when that was automated quickly for them. And then we had another mid-sized family business that broke into a whole new profit center for them in the rental business because their trading partner, which I think was Home Depot, or Lowe's, it's one of those that rents stuff. They were able to quickly onboard them into this rental program because they were EDI compliant. So those are just some use cases that show our myths are just not true. It's not for the big guys. Portals don't really work. Humans are still involved, and we can generate new business. It's not that expensive. So what does that mean for the future of EDI? Well, I suspect those myths are going to continue because we still have the people who tried to do EDI once, and it was really painful and really expensive, and they don't want to even talk about EDI. But hopefully we can convince them that it's not the same as it was back in the 80s, 90s, even early 2000s. API and EDI are going to work hand in hand. That's just the future. Neither of them are going to go away, and both of them are going to grow in their own directions, and they will be hybrid. You'll have both in the very near future if you don't already. More of the small businesses, small to medium-sized businesses, that's what SMB is if you didn't know, will be required to become EDI compliant. We see it every day. We won't do business with you unless you can do it via EDI. So that's just coming, and it will continue to grow as time goes. we're still going to need people. People aren't going to go away. But automation is going to make them more efficient, and they can do what they're really good at, which is the building of relationships and the keeping things moving and handling exceptions. Portals are probably going to stay around. I don't think those are going to go away. And I don't think that's bad because small volume, new users, those are going to be great for them. Automation is going to take its place once it becomes impractical. When you start getting those volumes that no longer allow you to hand enter things, that's when automation can take its place. So I always talk so fast on these, Ashley. I'm sorry, but we're already to the questions. Are there questions?